Hello there, thanks for allowing me, and welcome back to the F1 Roundup here in 2023. This is the Australian Grand Prix. And wowee, what a bizarre race we had. Bizarre, but my god, was it interesting. Have we got a lot to discuss? So if you don't know, we have a Discord server, link in the description. And throughout the morning, because it was a 6 o'clock start for me, I was saying, lads, make sure you watch this. It's a good one. It's a really good one. And then about the end of it, I don't really know what's going on. And I've watched the entire race. But here we are. We're actually going to go through the Australian Grand Prix, which only had, 3 red flags. Just for 3. But you know what? We will start off with a bit of, let's go through practice. Let's go through qualification of the Australian Grand Prix in Melbourne. So we'll start off with the practice. Nothing really of note, Red Bull would looked solid. The only thing that was important to note was the first practice. Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton got his Mercedes to second. And that sort of set a tone where Mercedes looked really solid this weekend. It's their best weekend of the season. They look really good. Yeah, we can be really happy. So, it was a few. In final practice, it was Verstappen, Alonso, Ocon, and Russell. It was a very good day for Mercedes. They were up there. In qualifying, though, so one driver did have a very bad day, and that was Checo Perez, who binned it and would have to start from back of the grid. Would later choose to start from the pit lane when he changed parts. Same as Bottas. He did a lap. Had a bit of a torrid weekend at Old Valtteri, but he once again started from a pit lane due to engine part changes. I don't know exact. There we go. In Q1, out was Bottas. Was about Perez, Bottas, Sargent, Zhou Guanyu, Oscar Piastri was so close. We're talking less than a tenth of a second out of Q1, but he came back and we showed some positives with old Oscar. In his home Grand Prix, the first Melbourne F1 driver, but obviously it was Mark Webber, Ricciardo, who we saw a lot of on the TV. But it was good to see Piastri do better in the race. Q2, we sort of saw a bit more of what we expected, apart from maybe one driver who sneaked through to Q3, potentially did very well, where Checo Perez probably would have been. So De Vries, Magnussen, Norris, Tsunoda, and Ocon all went out in Q2. Ocon, very close, probably 2 tenths off. Yeah, he was very close to getting through to Q2. But Verstappen topped both those quali sessions, and then he did a hat trick in Q3 to set a pole lap. But Nico Hulkenberg 10th, Gasly 9th, but Albon in 8th. Albon, brilliant session from Alexander Albon. Really good qualifying to get that Williams to 8th. Charles Leclerc could only manage 7th in another disastrous weekend for Ferrari, but we'll get into that. Lance Stroll goes Aston to 6th. Good session from Carlos Sainz Jr. to 5th. Fernando Alonso started down in 4th, that's the lowest we've seen him. And the 2 Mercedes started in 2nd and 3rd. And obviously Verstappen top. But the Mercedes were not far away. As far away as they have been, that's the closest they've been to the Red Bull. Only 2 tenths of a second on the qualifying pace. But in the race, not going to lie, Verstappen was in cruise control for the most part. Apart from, ironically, the first 10 laps. All went a bit wrong for old Max Verstappen. He was around to turn 1, as you can see. George Russell's in front of him. And then Hamilton gets in front of him. It was 1 and 2 Mercedes. Who would have seen that coming? Then, bad luck for old George. That summed up his race. Bad luck. Started really well, but then bad luck came. Safety car. So Charles Leclerc crashed on the first lap, so he's out. Then on lap 6, Alexander Albon crashed in a really odd crash. You actually have to go watch it. I don't really know how he's done it. He had a high-speed collision, and the safety car came out. Mercedes clearly weren't thinking the red flag was going to come out. I wasn't thinking the red flag was going to come out. In fact, never has a Grand Prix been ruined more than a red flag coming out. Because George Russell would have been fine, apart from obviously up later. And he was top first, went into pits expecting just to be a safety car. Comes out in 7th. Carlos Sainz had a similar problem. Then the red flag gets waved. And they are stuck. And everyone else gets a free change of tyres. In fact, I believe some teams didn't even do a pit stop. Due to technicalities of the fact that they used the red flag to change their tyres. So yeah, I think McLaren didn't do a single pit stop all day. But yeah, poor George, poor George. So it was in P1, safety car comes out, pits goes down to P7, red flag comes out. Then it's Hamilton from Verstappen, and Hamilton actually holds his own on the first couple of laps. After the restart, but unfortunately was just a sitting duck, and then Verstappen went and absolutely pulled a massive lead out, and yeah, just was in cruise control for the rest of the race until lap 52. But some things very interesting happened. Kevin Magnussen hit the wall and lost a wheel, and this time the red flag did have to come out because someone's going to have to go onto the track. Could it have been another safety car? Possibly should have been. But yeah, basically, the safety car came out, but the red flag was waved with about 4 laps to go. So we had a 3-lap shootout, and it was all very exciting. But it all went a bit pear-shaped on the restart. So much so that the lap 57, 56 technically didn't happen. Basically, Carlos Sainz Jr. locked up and hit Alonso. The 2 Alpines hit each other. Nick de Vries and Logan Sargent at some point whacked each other, and they were all out of the race. Carlos Sainz got a 5-second penalty, which is a bit harsh considering, but we'll get into that. But basically, because they didn't go through first sector, they had to go back to how they started the restart, but without all the cars that were no longer repeat start. It was the 2 Alpines, which would have been a fantastic result from them both. They had really up there. De Vries, Sargent, and that was it. And Carlos Sainz got a 5-second penalty, but they did revert back to it, which I think is harsh considering they sort of got rid of that lap and Carlos Sainz got a penalty. And especially as in the circumstances of how the race finished, it was a harsh penalty. Because, you know, in a normal race, 5 seconds, he could have built that up. But unfortunately, that 5 seconds, because we ended under the safety car, because after that restart, we got all the pack back together, they rejiggled the lead, and yeah, Alonso ended up 3rd, Stroll 4th, because they were both involved. But yeah, Sainz got a penalty, started 5th on the restart, but because everyone ended under the safety car, everyone was getting really tight to each other. 5 seconds down the road, put him out of points in 12th. A pointless weekend for Ferrari. Disaster. Now, Carlos Sainz didn't agree with penalty. I agree that he should have had a penalty. I think it's a really hard one because in the circumstance of the race, finished in 5 seconds feels a bit like a million seconds in this circumstance, as it did drop him from 5th to 12th. Seems they're all a bit harsh, really. Which, you know, he was a cause of red flag, but should a bit of common sense been taken into account? Yes, then after that we did the 1 lap under a safety car and we got our classified order, which was protested by Haas but was thrown out because under the if they didn't negate that lap, Hulkenberg would have been 4th, Sainz would have been 3rd, and Hulkenberg would have got his first ever podium. So I can understand why they protested, but they were the big losers in this, apart from Carlos Sainz. So let's go for the race order. So our non-finishers were Leclerc, Albon and Russell. Magnussen, Sargent, De Vries, Ocon and Gasly were all classified as finished, but didn't. But then in P12 was Carlos Sainz after the penalty. 11 was Bottas, who had a pretty torrid weekend. 10th is Yuki Tsunoda. 9th is Zhou Guanyu. 8, Oscar Piastri gets points. 7, Nico Hulkenberg. 6, Lando Norris gets his first points of the season. 5th, Checo Perez. He had a great weekend, always overtaking. 4th was Lance Stroll. 3rd, Fernando Alonso. 2, Lewis Hamilton. 1st, Verstappen. To sort of how under control Verstappen was at one point, he literally went off track, lost 4 seconds, and was still about 8 seconds in the lead. As you do. But yeah, fantastic result for Mercedes, getting, Hamilton there. Russell, we'll talk a bit more about Russell now, set about 8 laps after a safety car, engine sort of set on fire. Not ideal, had to retire. That brought out another safety car thing. Not ideal. But yeah, great result for Aston Martin, because they would both out the points if they didn't rejig the lap. Lando Norris, great weekend to get some points. And let's go through the standings for the driver and constructors. All the teams have points now. 10 Williams, who could have had more if Albon didn't crash because he's looking really good. 9th AlphaTauri, both with a point each. 8th Alfa Romeo with 6. 7 Haas with 7. 6 Alpine with 8. McLaren have jumped all the way up to 5th with 12 points, all scored today. 4 was Ferrari with 26 points. 3 Mercedes with 56. 2 Aston Martin 65. And at the top is Red Bull with 123 after 3 wins. Ouch. But yeah, fantastic weekend for McLaren, all things considered. Disastrous for Ferrari. If you said to me 2 weeks ago that McLaren were going to be 14 points behind Ferrari, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are. They're 4th and 5th. Yeah, all teams have got points now. Really good. And to be fair, take away Red Bull, all the other teams are not a million miles away from each other. Just Red Bull, who have massively pulled out an advantage. Let's go through the driver standings now. Nick De Vries and Logan Sargent are 19th and 20th with nil flat points to their name. Albon and Magnussen and Sonoda all have a point. Zhou Guanyu has 2. Gasly, Piastri, Ocon and Bottas all have 4. Charles Leclerc, poor old Charles, only has 6, as does Hülkenberg. Lando has 8, which he scored today. George Russell has 18th and 10th. He would have had a lot more if he didn't dump today. Lance Stroll has 20, as does Carlos Sainz Jr. Hamilton is 38th. Fernando Alonso, 3 straight third places, gets 45. Perez on 54, and out the lead with 69. Nice is Max Verstappen. Now, due to how the F1 calendar works out, we won't see each other again in this series till the 30th of April, due to the fact the Chinese Grand Prix got cancelled. So because of that, we won't see each other now till the 30th of April. So next week will be the gaming news as normal. The week after will be a little extra video with another creator, it's not me. The week after is back to the gaming news, but on the 30th, the day of the race, I am back. We'll be recording, and that'll be a really unusual situation where the Grand Prix was actually been on the same day as the roundup for it. But yeah, thank you so much all for watching. My name's Shab, and I'll see you all next time. But till then, toodaloo. See ya!